Here's your output shaft and your low reverse. I already got new bushings. The reverse piston's in there. It's already been compressed, new seals and everything. I got my bucket of solvent over there. But I'll usually stack a shim down here, and the reason why I'll stack a shim down here is because it'll bring that end play up, and this way you're not spacing out the pump. And I'll get to that later on in the video, but I'll put about a 10th thou in here, anywhere from 5 to 10, depending on what I find before I take it apart. So bearing goes on, make sure it's not hitting the bushing, that's pressed in. Put your spacer on, got the trans gel already on it. Okay, so you want to take your Scotch pad, okay, and you want to Scotch pad all the surfaces, all the bushing surfaces. You want to chamfer the holes, okay, all the holes, chamfer them. Put in the output shaft and the low reverse. Make sure it spins freely. Next, get the planetary. A little bit of gel on it. Pack the bearing. See that bearing, how it rides against there? The tangs go up. So it goes on like that. And I already pressed in new bushings, so. And everything's been gone through. Everything's been, all the oiling holes have been chamfered. Again, I'll show you here. It should take like 15 minutes to throw one of these transmissions together. So these oiling holes here have been chamfered. There is a little bit of wear, but I'm not too concerned about it. It's going in a RatRod, so if he ends up blowing apart this transmission, I'll probably be doing a 4L60 for him. All right, so now you got your steels and frictions. Okay, these have been pre-soaked, of course. These are already in the transmission. Just going to throw them back in. Alternate. Steel and friction, steel and friction. Now this comes on and put it dry, and it stays on for all 4 years. Now, to check the clearance, I'm going to grab a special tool. There you go. There's your 55 thou, right? Put it right here. I want it to fall down, so you got to kind of like find a decent opening to where it won't fall down there anywheres. All right, so this is your 4L60. Okay, this is the overrunning clutch out of the 4L60, out of an S10. Actually, the same Curtis's. This is his transmission, his RatRod. This is actually out of his 4L60 that came out of his S10. He liked to roll back and throw it in drive, so the sun gear took a toll, and he just got a boneyard transmission, and I stole this out of his old one. And you know, you surface that, you drill the holes, you tap them, and I'll get to that later. And also, what I'll do is I'll actually press this out, and you'll see when you press this inner race here out, there's a lot of grit and a lot of garbage from when they originally pressed this together. I get rid of that, I clean it real good, I Scotch-Brite it, and then I JB weld it and repress it in. Okay. So it's just some extra insurance. When you press this in, this has to be completely flush, okay? There cannot be a ledge here. It has to be completely flat. And I'll usually put about 20 tons of pressure on this and let it set up over. So, yeah, there's your 4L60. And I'll just set this in here for now. Now, you really can't measure the play. However, if you can put the snap ring in there and you got the diamond there, you can assume that you got more than 55 thousandths, okay? Because the dime, it's usually around 55 thousandths for dime thickness. So if you can get the snap ring in there, which I know I can, okay? So just make sure that this center support snap ring can go in. Actually, all right, so we know the snap ring fits in there, right? Get your custom-made pick, put that down in there, and check for your clearance, how much clearance you'll have, where that dime is. You got to be over where the dime is, okay? Just kind of feeling around. There's about 10 in there. So I got about 65, maybe 70. The specifications for this transmission for that intermediate is anywhere from 10 thousandths to 110. I like to be in the middle. Got that lined up. Now, if you're ever wondering where this goes, there's a little hump right here in the case. That hump goes right here. And it also lines up with the suction in the feed. So this will go there. And this will go back in now that it's all lined up. And you basically want to make sure it's seated. Yeah, but I'll be putting a case saver in here, a real case saver, not one of those little pucks or 2 or 3 pucks. I'll be putting a real case saver in here. And that looks like this. Okay, now you can grind these out. Now this snap ring, okay, for the case, it has to engage on that anti-clunk spring. So where the anti-clunk spring curves, okay, it has 2 parts. It has a flat part and a curved part. Snap ring locks it into the case and it catches on the curve, okay? Now, what I like to do is I like to pull this away as far as I can and give that spring room. And I'll show you in here in a little bit. Let's see, let me get my headlamp. Probably be easier for you guys to see with the headlamp on. Oh, there you go. Jill. That's what that is. So you engage it on that. And now if you ever get one of these transmissions and you find that the support is the support is actually gouged into the case. The logical thing to do is not to beat it on the ground or, you know, hit it with a hammer. What you actually have to do, so you don't really destroy the case anymore or damage it anymore, you'll have to go in there with 2 screwdrivers. And actually originally I had to do it with this case. It was just, I mean, it was stuck in there. It wouldn't come out. And then I finally got it out using this method. You would take the 2 screwdrivers, and when the position it's clocked in, you would go against that clock and move it. And when you do this, when you have it resting on the ground, okay, and stable, the weight of the transmission, it'll push all that out. Okay, just, I mean, it's as simple as that. All you have to do is take these screwdrivers, wedge them in the case, and walk that support around to where it lines up with these grooves. And then you just kind of push down on the case and it all falls out. That's the safe way so you don't damage the case anymore. So right here, I got the snap ring engaged into the case, the last tang right here, and it's also holding this clunk spring. Okay, it's holding the clunk spring, the clunk spring to the case. All right, so that's taken care of. Now that the snap ring's in, we're going to get the full complement case saver. And you'll see when I go to put this in, these will line up with the tangs in the case. And what will happen is when you go to put it in gear now, instead of just 1 or 2, 3 or 4 areas that touch, you actually have the whole outside circumference. Every one of these knobs, these raised sections here, are going to engage in the case. And you see how much them bolt holes are off? You can see it clear in the video here. Let me see if I can zoom in. See how much those are off? That's how much the case is worn. Okay? So that's why I have to get the bolt in there, catch a thread, pull it, and it's going to create tension on that spring, and then I'm going to turn the bolt all the way in and seat it. All right, so this is what I use. It's so basically it's non-fouling. There's no solids. If it does happen to break loose or get loose, it'll just crumble up and go away. So that's what I use for Loctite when it comes to transmissions. And also hydraulic systems. You can use this on hydraulic systems. On the tool. And that's about as much lock. Just kind of get the threads and maybe a little bit of the head. Okay, one started. And you'll see when I start putting these in, you'll see that case, that support start to turn and get into its final resting position where it needs to be. All right. See how it's centered up then? All right, now, I'll get a shorter wrench so I get some torque on it. All right, now you make sure you want to use a good newer Allen, let's just say newer, and just turn it till you feel it stop. And you'll feel it. It'll turn, get tight, and then just stop. And that's where you want to be. Some of these are at a bad angle. Yeah, make sure it's seated all the way in that bolt too. You definitely don't want to be stripping one of these out. However, I've had it happen before. And it's not fun, because it is a hardened bolt. So there's that. These should all be tight already. Alright. Alright, so let's see if I can do it this way. Huh? Maybe it's a little better? I don't know. Alright, so sun gear. Double bushinged. This is a 9/64. Don't hold me to it, but that's chamfered a little bit. This is hardened, double bushinged, and that's basically all I do. I drill it out, and when it pokes through the bushing there, I get some sandpaper, sand it down to where you can't feel anything, and that's it. Assemble it back on the sun, and that's about it. What I do with this is just check to make sure it's not gouged or worn out. This is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty decent. Yeah. Put this together. That on. Get the snap ring in place.